Hey guys, Stealth here. In this replay we're going to be looking at the gameplay that was shown by Lobachevsky. He has exactly the right mindset for Wargame Red Dragon, because what he wrote in the commentary for this replay is this. He says, "My USSR infantry got utterly destroyed by all sorts of blue for infantry. I'm pretty new to the game, only a few dozen matches so far, so I'd like to know what it is my enemies did right and what I could have done to answer them." So he has exactly the right mindset because he wants to improve. He wants to learn from the games that he's played so far. So that's exactly what we're going to be doing. I'm going to look at this game, have a look at what kind of units he's bringing in, see what kind of units he might have brought in and what he could have done better with those. And if you have any things that I might skip over, please do the same thing, because that is going to be the most help not only to Lobachevsky but also to other people who are newer to the game, who like pointers and who like to see how they can improve. Now let's see what he's going to start with, because that's also a very important element of the game. He's starting off with a couple of BMP-3s, BMP-2 OBR 1986s, a couple of transports. His AA is in groups of 1, so lonely vehicles, and that is something that makes it more difficult to micromanage. What I usually do is make AA groups of 2 units to make sure that I have one single set of AA infantry, or maybe 2 sets of 2 if you can manage the points for that. So that's the first thing I would do to prevent the need of micromanagement, so that I can spend my attention on the actual offensive infantry instead of the supportive AA infantry. Same thing here with the manpads, the ATGM infantry. I would not take those in 2 groups of 1. I would make it 1 group of 2 and try to park it, for example, over there, to make sure I have a solid ATGM line in case someone tries to do a push over here with either tanks or transports. And talking of transports, what I would use here is a deck that is specifically geared vehicle-wise to going towards the middle. What you don't really need in the middle is a BMP-3, because that's pretty expensive. And BMP-3s have a very good ATGM on them. Now the ATGM serves you well if it gets to fly out in the open. That is not terrain that you're going to find here. So the ATGM cannot work really well, and neither can the autocannons from the BMP-2s. I mean, they can do some definite damage, no question about it. But what I would do here is also bring a BMP-1C, because that version has a grenade launcher. And a grenade launcher is going to chew through infantry very quickly, and that's what you need in an urban situation like this, because it's one of the few vehicles that have a grenade launcher. Talking about grenade launchers, he does have one in the form of the BMP-T that's moving along with this column. So this is definitely an infantry killer. But for example, the BMP-2s are not going to be that great at it. An autocannon is, I found, more suitable to defeating vehicles first and infantry secondary. Now another thing that I'm seeing here is a couple of loose hinds, in the sense that they're not grouped up. I'm not sure yet where these are going, but considering that it's an Mi-24D transport, there might very well be Spetsnaz coming out of that. And then he has 2 reconnaissance hinds with reconnaissance infantry, followed by another Mi-2. Now you don't really need that much reconnaissance infantry out here. The reason is that the distances over here are so small that your standard infantry with medium optics will have well enough optics to see the enemy coming. Talking about seeing the enemy coming, it looks like they're already here. These look like Pumas to me, so it might be a French deck, and considering that these are Celtics, that is probably, well, at least it's a deck that has French units, so it might be Eurocorps. Quickly going to take a look at this big blob. It's definitely that the English have arrived here. Lynx 3s, and yeah, that's going to be dealt with. Anyway, back to the center. As expected, he deployed Spetsnaz. What I usually do here is deploy Spetsnaz in group of 2, so you have 20 Spetsnaz in a building, gives you double the amount of RPO rice that they can fire, and that means that they're going to chew through infantry even faster than they normally would. So that is something that I would do in order to also prevent micromanagement, and I would try to push up here as fast and as far as possible, and use these BMP-2s and the BMP-3 to make sure that these VABs are not going to get too close. Now, interesting username, by the way, Shocked Cookie. There is another interesting username in this game. I usually look around for interesting usernames to point out, and you can see it here. I'm going to pause this just for this slight intermittence. Let's see, Shocked Cookie. Where is the guy? Guess he doesn't have any fobs. Yep, here he is. His username is No Arty Noob Supply Station. I thought this was pretty funny because it's a very, very clear message that if you want to use artillery, fine, but you're going to have to resupply them yourself, which I think is the right mindset to have anyway. Okay, this is something that he's probably just starting to offload and starting to micromanage, but they're taking too long. This would all die to one bombing run. So make sure that as you're moving these troops in, you start to queue orders. For example, the MTLBVs with their AA infantry, send them in, and as they are moving there, hold shift, click offload and send the transport back. That way you have the AA infantry not in the vehicle but actually out there. Even if it's not in the building yet, it is still going to be effective at actually fighting anti-air or fighting aerial vehicles. The same thing for the transports which are carrying the Motostroki 90. These guys, by the way, are not in a building yet. And while they are being engaged heavily by a group of, and I gotta say this is interesting, 40 Pathfinders. Normally you don't see groups of 2 reconnaissance infantry together, let alone 4. That tells you something that the player is either very experienced and knows very well how to use those Pathfinders, or he pretty much doesn't have a clue what he's doing. That's the way that I look at a group of 40 reconnaissance infantry. Always assume that your opponents are very skilled though, because if you start to underestimate them, if you're thinking, well, this is probably a beginning player, I can probably get away with this, you usually get yourself killed. Talking about getting yourself killed, these AMX 10Ps are casually waiting here to get shot by the ATGMs mounted on, or fired by the Concours, and I was going to say mounted on the BMPs, but those things have already died. Well, I gotta say, his ally is not exactly helping either. Arnoid over here should have pushed up with these 30, 70, well at least 73 Motostroki, and there probably were more of them, out into these VABs and to the AMX-10Ps to make sure that he could put some pressure on them. Because right now he's not doing anyone any good. The Spetsnaz over here is unfortunately not doing that well against a large group of FKPs, and those FKPs are going to overwhelm the infantry here very quickly. What I would use here is either a BMPT to make sure I can put down more fire but stay at range, because the grenade launcher is perfectly capable of firing at a range of, I believe, 1200. And the infantry usually only has a range of maximum of 875, 1050 if you're talking Erics. But otherwise, if you stay outside a range of 1200 meters from infantry, you're never going to get taken by them. Unless, of course, they're ATGM infantry, but that's a whole different chapter. Now, for a situation like this, I would make sure that the Spetsnaz that's in my deck is not coming in Mi-24Ds, because they're too easy to shoot down. You can see that they're already getting engaged here by the AMX-13s. And what I would do here is transport them in cheaper ground vehicles. It makes sure that you save a lot of points. You save 55 points on the Mi-24. And it makes it so that the infantry is safer to arrive. He's offloaded these Motostrokis, and they are in a large group. I would prefer to have 2 groups of 20 to make sure that they're not one big target the way they're presenting themselves now. Because with 2 groups of 20 you can take 2 buildings instead of giving the enemy the chance of capturing one of them. And you make sure that you're not one huge target, so that you can alternate the 2 groups as well. Have one group engage the enemy, the other group a little bit further back to make sure they can be resupplied. Another unit that I find indispensable in situations like these is the flame tank. Call it the flame tank, the napalm tank, the flamethrower, whatever name you have for it, it is going to be extremely effective here. And considering that these French units don't seem to use any ATGM except for the AMX here and the Tiger, you can reasonably safely use a napalm tank from this position and just wipe out these chasseurs and possibly the legionnaires if you can get close enough. It's going to make it very, very easy for you to get rid of the infantry and deny the enemy these buildings. Now let's see what else he's bringing in here. He has one group of manpads all the way out back. These are too far away. If you want to use the manpads, make sure they're getting a little bit closer, for example out there or in here, because if that way an aircraft flies over, they can still shoot it down. Also, having one single Nona out here is going to be a panic weapon, but it's not going to do a lot of damage. The way I use Nonas, and I'm not saying it's the only right way to do it, but the way I use Nonas is usually in groups of 3 or 4, to make sure that when I fire them, I can either put down smoke screens very quickly, or I can engage the enemy with a lot of high-end armored HE shells, because they do, I believe, 5 HE per round that they fire. Now you can also see that Bluefor has a ton of units here. They got a large amount of Pathfinders, and these are elite infantry units, as well as a large amount of elite JSDF Rangers. So again, shock troopers in the reconnaissance section being used as offensive units. And considering that they use a submachine gun and a very, very good stationary machine gun, the Hawa DMR. Actually, that's not a machine gun, that's a sniper rifle, sorry about that. Makes these guys very, very dangerous. So, some more concrete tips. Bring more Spetsnaz. Even if you're encountering a group of 20 or 40 as they were FKPs, if you have a group of 20 to 30 Spetsnaz, you're going to chew through those guys very, very quickly, because the more of them there are in the building, the more impact those missiles that they fire, the RPO Rise, are going to give you, and the more infantry will die. Now he's using a BRDM-3 reconnaissance unit here. You don't really need one in this position. It is more of a recon unit that happens to have a autocannon. Unfortunately, he's taking artillery fire here. Oh, it's the BMP-1D, not the 1C. The BMP-1D has a grenade launcher. If he'd have put these transports out there, they would have started lobbing a large amount of grenades onto these chasseurs, the VABs, and possibly even the Legionnaires. And by doing that, they would have probably beaten them until they got hit by the AMX HOT. So someone would have needed to take this thing out. But it seems that they're already doing that with a couple of howitzers, or probably, yeah, it's Potnos, it's mortars. Now this BMP-2 is presenting itself as a big target here, especially to the FKPs, which have a pretty high-end ATGM or AT weapon. So make sure that you get this guy to safety faster, or keep it at a greater distance. If it were to be out here, with a reconnaissance unit close to it, it could spot almost all the infantry that's in here and engage them with the autocannons, as well as the BMP-3 with the 2A70, which is a nice high HE fast-firing main gun, which can quickly engage infantry as well. Now let's see, he's bringing in more grenade launchers. So he got the right transports, he's just not quite using them the right way. Another way to use these would be to put down a smoke screen here, or at least a smoke screen on this side, get towards this position, engage the AMX HOT first, because it can kill you, or kill that with your mortars. Then come in with the BMP-1Ds down this road and then up that road. Deploy your infantry, have the infantry get the cover of smoke into these buildings, and use the grenade launchers to start wiping out these guys. The chasseurs that are in here are very easy to deal with, as well as the Legionnaires. Just make sure you don't get too close, because Legionnaires have the Erics, and that range will kill your transports if they get too close. Now they are being RD'd, and by the profiles, considering that one missile came in, that was probably an ATACMS, or an ATACMS as some people call it. Tunguska has the main gun turned off, so that's a good choice there. And yeah, finally these Pathfinders are going down quite fast due to the combined fire of, I think, these BMP-1D with their grenade launcher. Now let's see about other sections of the map. How's the battle going on other fronts? The right front, not a lot going on here. Interesting to see a T-80 being wasted back there, along with a BTR-80A. Great vehicles. BMP-3 sitting here doing nothing with a large complement of infantry, probably. But they are pushing up. They are getting terrain, so they're doing a good job on the right flank. See about the left flank. Pushing up with a couple of T-80Bs as well. Humvees, unfortunately, taking down an Mi-2 here. And the rest of the territory has been captured by Blue Force, so they're probably bringing in a lot of supplies and reinforcements here. So the best thing that Red Force can do now is hold, build up, and then push into Paul, if they can manage it. Or, and that's the alternative, hold and try to break through somewhere else. So for example into Dmitry and then into Anna, if they can muster that. Anyway, back to the middle. Here is a napalm tank. This one is being used by, I believe it's called Arnoid. Is that right? Yeah, he's Arnoid. And you can see that he is barbecuing these Remas. Very, very quickly. They are getting out of the building, or at least they tried, but they're all getting burned up here. Tu-55 trying to use its main gun. Probably to take out that AA unit, although with a 5% accuracy, because it's panicked, it's probably not going to hit. Something else that you can do here is make a tandem push, and by that I mean combine some of those BMP-1Ds, and you don't need a group of 4. 2 groups of 2 would also work, or 1 group of 2 transports with a couple of T-72s for just easy fire support, because there are no heavy units, there's no real heavy AT capacity here. You can probably take out most of these vehicles relatively quickly with a couple of T-72s. Now, Navy SEALs are coming in here, and they're going to chew up any kind of infantry that are operating close. So either engage these guys with mortars, napalm, or BMP-1Ds. Because BMP-1Ds are going to very, very quickly chew through the SEALs, and the SEALs with their grenade launcher cannot really do a lot against that. I'm going to switch it to neutral view quickly because I'm interested in what Blue 4 has in here. And Blue 4 doesn't actually have that much. They have a large amount of SAS that they have sitting here doing nothing really. SAS are troops that are meant to push or flank, and they're not doing either here. So this guy is also very, very busy on micromanaging the forces that he has. A couple of JFDS Rangers here being engaged by BMPTs, and this is when the BMPTs make a mistake. They're getting too close. You can see that they are getting engaged by the BMPT, by the JSDF Rangers, and one of them took a pretty big hit there. But they're never going to survive that. So good play there by Lobachevsky. Now let's see about the other sections. They're not really pushing up here, but they're not losing terrain either. So it's pretty much a standoff here. In a situation like this, just put some infantry into the buildings. You don't need groups of 30 here. By the way, this would also be a perfect target for napalm. Just use those Tu-62s, tell them to attack ground, and just barbecue the hell out of these chasseurs. Some FKPs getting eradicated by BMPTs, but yep, I was afraid that was going to happen. BMPT got too close, and the FKPs managed to take out one of those. And there goes the other one. Next time, keep your BMPTs a bit farther away. I know that this large strip of tree line is preventing your BMPTs to firing from one side to the other. But it's better to save your 140 points of BMPTs, and that's 70 per vehicle, than to just lose them and push them up into FKPs like that. Now, finally, one tank. I'd expected more tanks here by Blue 4. Let's see, sorry, by Red 4. Blue 4 has some, I believe, AMX-30s by the profile. Let's cheat. AMX-32s, yeah, close enough. Very accurate snipers, especially when they're sitting still, because on the move they're no good. They only got a 30% stabilizer. You can see that Blue 4 has a decent amount of units in here, but not so much that it would be very, very difficult to push in. If you can manage to go through the infantry that's in here, You can go through everything else with a couple of tanks, because it's just a bit of AA, some infantry that's out in the open, some very, very wounded legionnaires here, and some HGMLNs, which are also out in the open. So a situation like this, you can go through it. But then again, of course, I know that because I can see it. But he didn't know that. They are spotting those AMX-32s, but let's see if they can do anything against it. Now some Chasseur 85 here, engaging Motostrelki. Motostrelki should join these guys in the building, there you go. And it looks like, what's this guy called? Tobinas? Tobinasi is going to also engage this group, but unfortunately it seems like the SEALs are still out here, backed up with Commando Marines. Is this the same guy, by the way? Might very well be. Yeah, it's the same guy. That means... Hang on. This guy has Navy SEALs. That's an American force. This guy also has Commando Marines. That's a French force. Then he has FKP, so he probably went with a... I'm thinking motorized deck. He might be using a motorized general NATO deck. That's pretty much the only thing I can think of, because these guys are all very, very high veterancy. And they are all from different nationalities, so it's definitely a general NATO deck and probably motorized, considering the high veterancy of all of these units. So this guy knows what he's doing, and he's using a very specialized deck with all of the super high-end infantry that NATO can give you. No prototypes, but Lobachevsky, know that you're going up against a guy that really knows what he's doing here. He has exactly the right units for the job, in the form of a group of Navy SEALs, Commando Marines, Mistrals to shoot down any kind of helicopter that happens to come near, SAS, Pioneers, whatever you throw at this guy, he can counter it. So don't be kicking yourself too hard for the damages or the losses that you're taking here, because the guy that you're facing is definitely not a beginner. Large artillery strike here coming in, doing unfortunately a lot of damage to both Arnold and Tobinais. Now the one thing that I don't see blue for, or red for having, no sorry, blue for having here a lot is AA. So that could be the one Achilles heel that red 4 can exploit here. Don't get those BMPTs too close. They're not direct engagement weapons. There you go. Thing got shot in the side. This would be in a much better position, or out there, because in here, because from here they can still engage the Commando Marines probably relatively safely. I doubt that the Commando Marines will be in range though. So that would have been a slightly better position. Now the Spetsnaz show up, but they're too far away from the battle. Push their Spetsnaz in, fast and far. You want to get right on top of the Navy SEALs or the Commando Marines, preferably the Commando Marines, to make sure you can wipe out those guys with the RPO Rice. And there's unfortunately only one group firing at them now. There's another group of Commando Marines. And I was afraid of this. They are using not all of their weapons. One of the groups is not going to be in range, and this is why I prefer two groups of two, because you can capture buildings faster and have more groups firing at the enemy. Because if I'm looking at this now, they are only firing their RPO Rice. I'm going to slow this down. They're only firing their RPO Rice, and that was 1 to 3 groups, and then 1 to 3 groups were firing their main weapon, that AS Val that they're using. Now it's just one group. If you would have two groups, you would have, for example, one group over there and the other group over here, pushing up towards the flank and engaging the infantry, or engaging the next group as it comes up. So try to split your units up into a little bit more groups. It will be a little bit more of micromanagement, but it makes it so that your troops are much, much more effective. So more Spetsnaz engaging FKP, and considering the amount of FKP in here and that they're in the same building block, makes it so that the Spetsnaz cannot use their RPO Rice. And that is really the main weapon for the Spetsnaz here. Spetsnaz are also very heavily panicked. The FKP are just a bit worried. Just a bit worried when you come up against 40 Spetsnaz. So unfortunately that was a loss of a big group of Spets there. And wow, these Navy SEALs are just volunteering to get mortied or fired up by mortars. Unfortunately, Lobachevsky didn't see the opportunity to engage them there. Let's have a look at the score in the meanwhile. 6,800 versus 13,000. Blue 4 is kicking Red 4's ass by very, very high amount of points, unfortunately. I doubt that they can get that. Yeah, they got it. They got the Jaguar. Nice kill there with the Tunguska and the Iglas. Now more Navy SEALs pushing in. There's a grounded Mi-24 VP. If you can, don't ground your helicopters. If you can't, get the helicopter away, because a helicopter in a position like this is a very, very high-end, very expensive and especially easy target for example, a Carl Gustav fired by FKPs. So move your Mi-24 VP, your 100-point helicopter, away to a position like there, or farther away if it's taking AA missile fire. And I know that there's SAS and Mistrals somewhere lurking about. Now a couple of BMP-1Ds, offload these guys right now. Come on. And then use the grenade launchers on those FKP. He's just quite lucky that that Mi-24 did not get hit. And yeah, that's also another weapon that I should have mentioned. In a USSR mechanized deck, you also get the capacity to use the Buratino. If he would have deployed one or possibly two Buratinos, that would have made a ton of difference. He could have just pretty much nuked the entire area here and cleared out the SEALs, cleared out the FKP, or at least done a ton of damage to them and probably caused quite some losses in the sense of losses to squads or loss of squads. And look at those BMP-1Ds chewing away at the SEALs. This guy knows a might part. I'm not sure, it might be Russian or something. He recognizes the threat and he's engaging the BMP-1Ds with the FKPs. Unfortunately, Lobachevsky is trying to get these guys right on top of the FKPs, and that's not how you use these. Because now, in this position, they can be engaged by both the Commander Marines and the FKPs, and that makes it very, very dangerous. I expect at least, yeah, there you go, at least one or two of them to die very soon. That's exactly what happened, unfortunately. There goes another one. Keep these guys farther away, and your infantry that is going to come up is going to be supported heavily by grenade launchers. These things are not made up for close engagements. Now I think that this position is going to get overrun pretty quick, simply by the sheer number of infantry units that Blue 4 has operating in this area. And they're also patrolling, wow, look at that, that's a large flight of tornadoes with a Eurofighter and a group of Lynx 3s. So Blue 4 is coming around the flank here and pushing right into Sergei. This caught my eye because of the large blue blob here on the minimap. And, ooh, there's even more. Eagles, Block 52s. They're using a lot of fighters here, denying Red for the capacity to bring in fighters. And that's a good choice, because with all of these aircraft that Blue 4 has operating here, you don't want to have a fighter between those. Anyway, let's have a look at the situation here. The amount of BMP-1Ds that Lobachevsky has seems sheer endless, considering how many of these vehicles or vehicle groups we've already seen getting destroyed. Let's see, Modestro, keep pushing up. Come on, don't go into this building, this one's much safer. And again, a napalm tank would also have been a useful asset here. Deploy the napalm tank here, just stop it there, have it fire ground, so force attack it there. And then come in with BMP-1D. So you're sealing off this area of retreat, forcing the FKPs to go further back, and then you can napalm this building, so you can focus on the other area instead. Now look at this, 48 Commander Marines. This is an expensive group, by the way. I believe that Commander Marines are 30 points per squad, 40 points even. So you're looking at a 160 point investment here, which is, I suppose you could say, pretty much the infantry equivalent of a super heavy tank for almost 180 points. Except this is 160, so say a T-72 Moderna or a Leclerc tank. By the way, one thing I wanted to mention about 10v10s and people leaving and not getting units, because there is a way to prevent that, if you want to call it a way. What you can do is be sure not to be the first one in the room. If you're the first one in the lobby or the second one, you're going to be very, very likely to receive units. And the same goes for Red 4, of course, so Able and Upgrade are very likely to receive units if someone else leaves. Because the game seems to go through a order of who is in the game and who can I give these units to. So to make sure that that doesn't happen to you, for example, Lobachevsky's position is very good. You don't have to worry about getting more units. A person like Hanarabi 48 over here is very likely to receive blue 4 units if someone above him or below him decides to leave. So with that, if you don't want it to happen, make sure you enter the lobby at a later stage when the game is already filling up. Now, I don't think that they're going to stand in this position for too long. Let's speed this up a little bit, because I think that Blue 4 is going to reach these points quite quick. Interestingly though, they have managed to hold onto this zone. I thought they were going to lose this, but they managed to hold it. So good job to Red 4 operating on this flank. Some more Spatsnaz trying to do a desperate offensive, but I'm not sure why he was pushing up this far. There was no real need to go that far, because it didn't have the capacity to clear out this section anyway. So don't go off with panic offensives. Rather hold your position, hold your ground, or fall back even if you have to. And then only when you have a specific objective, for example take this zone, and have the amount of units that you need, then you can push up. That's the safest way to do it. Now let's push this up, because I'm interested in the scores. And I gotta say, overall Lobachevsky didn't do that bad. What he could have done is kept his vehicles at a greater distance, transported Spatsnaz in groups of 2 and in ground vehicles instead of Mi-24Ds, because the Hinds here are not that useful. But other than that, not that much else. Let's see, 1600 points killed off and 3600 points lost, and that's mostly down to Spatsnaz getting killed and quite a large amount of transports. He did get 2300 cap points, so he did do that very well. And let's see if there are any other things. Let's see about the guy who was operating in that sector. This guy. Yeah, you can see that this was the star player on Blue 4. Unfortunately, I'm not logged in right now, so I cannot check his stats. But this guy really did good in the middle with his general NATO motorized deck. So I hope you liked watching this replay. I hope you learned something of it. Especially the way that I look at infantry fights in the middle in maps like Asgard, and pretty much goes for every other infantry fight as well. If you have the right mix of units and the right way to command them, you can pretty much tackle any threat. If you have seen any things that I haven't mentioned in the video, or any tips that you can give Lobachevsky, please let him know in the comments down below. And also just general tips for CQC are welcome in the comments, so I look forward to hearing from you. If you like this replay, please give it a like, and if you're not subscribed yet, be sure to do so by clicking that subscribe button. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.